The sounds of that light. Growing old is mandatory. Growing up is optional. Julie Davis. This story is taken from an interview made by journalist Jane Phillips, the head nurse of the Golden Years Nursing Home in Toronto, Dr. Christine Peterson. She described how she has been worried about elders who don't show any interaction with other elders at all, and her urge for taking action. Throughout this assignment, we shall recall her social work with elders, especially her role on the Wiggins case. Mr. John H. Wiggins has a great collectionist and met his wife, Julia, on the 1970s World Tour. Back then, when things were much simpler. Somehow, they ended up selling the fruit market they owned, as well as got to their side a good pension monthly. They were healthy, wealthy, and friendly. Nevertheless, the worst again comes from with inner absence of vibrating sensations. They were bitter, angry, and distant to each other, and to everyone. Based on this situation, head nurse Christine Peterson decided to do something to help those elders and make them happier. One day, Christine carried some iPods to the nursing home and called some elders' relatives to ask about their granny's favorite music. Then she asked elders if they wanted to listen some special musics, and they yelled, "Yes, yes, and we want it very loud, please." Before the interactions, elders just answered yes-no questions, nodding with their gray-haired heads. But after that experiment, it all changed, getting much better for the classics. When Christine put headphones to elders, they immediately showed happiness and they started to sing, dance, and move, as if they were brought back to life again. Therefore, Christine decided to do it with a special married couple, Mr. and Mrs. Wiggins. They were two elders who had been living there for around 10 years. Mr. and Mrs. Wiggins had been decreasing their daily lives over time. They had shown long, depressing moments, and they almost didn't want to share time together, talk, or move from their rooms. A sunny Monday morning, Christine told them if they wanted to listen to some music, and they just moved their heads saying yes and held hands. After saying that behavior when they listened to their music, she felt a breeze of inner satisfaction, full of happiness, as she could see the elders' gratefulness in the shine of their eyes. When Christian started the music, they immediately looked at each other and smiled. Mr. and Mrs. Wiggins started to sing and move their bodies around. It was clearly shown in their faces how happy and quiet they were. After a couple of days, Mr. Wiggins asked Christine if he could get one song in particular. "Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me" by Elton John. It was their favorite song when they were girls. Christine played that song in an afternoon when elders had already had lunch. Then Mr. and Mrs. Wiggins started to dance together, wearing their wedding clothes. Christine and all the staff couldn't avoid to cry. It was one of the best afternoons ever of the Golden Years Nursing Home.
Created using Powtoon.
This story is about Fiona Phillips' testimony about how hard it was leaving her mother in a nursing home. Firstly, Fiona's mother suffered Alzheimer's, so she often called Fiona crying because she couldn't remember many things. But one day she called her because she felt lonely in the nursing home. Fiona went to her father's house to tell him the situation, but he told her that he can't take care of her mother because he was suffering Alzheimer's too. For that reason, Fiona decided to let him also at the nursing home with her mother, but she felt so guilt and powerless because she can't take care of her parents. She didn't have the time and the capacity for it. 1 year later, her mother died. His father felt moral worth and he died 2 weeks later. Fiona felt devastated.
Created using Powtoon.